It is highly recommended that you watch part 1 of our Wrestle Up in Minutes series. Part 1 covers important drills along with dealing with an opponent that stands over your guard. Part 2 is about dealing with an opponent who is on the ground. Please note, we also demonstrate how to bring your opponent to the ground from a standing body lock. Don't forget to watch until the end. If you time it right and your opponent leaves their elbows out, you can dive in for a body lock and then break them down from there. So you get underneath their arms, dive in for the body lock, and then break them down for the sweep. Another option from the dive in body lock is to get the body lock, but then get your arms high and rock back so you can lift them. Then you reverse the direction, kick them forward, bring your arms down low to their back and break them down from there. So you rock back, bring your arms down, and then break them down with the body lock takedown. Understand that a very common thing that happens from this situation is your opponent might try to stand up. So when they go to stand up, keep that pressure underneath their lower back, so then that way you can pull them in and break them down for the takedown. So they stand up, you pull in their lower back and take them down. Another common thing that happens from the diving body lock when your opponent stands up is they either turn away from you or you can chuck them by and get behind them, so that way you can work your body lock takedowns from this situation as well. The basic butterfly sweep is a great way to set up wrestle up situations. It's very common for your opponent to post out during the basic butterfly sweep. This will present you with the opportunity to wrestle up anyway into a body lock and sweep them anyway. When they post out during the basic butterfly sweep, they will also leave themselves open for a knee pick. This happens because it'll be very hard for them to post out with the leg on that side. So when you go for a basic butterfly sweep and they post out with their arm, you can reach out to the outside of their knee and still sweep them. When you go for the basic butterfly sweep and they post out and you switch to the knee pick, you can also hook their leg with your leg like an inside trip. So you go to sweep them, they post out, you go to knee pick them, but then you hook their leg like an inside trip. So this way, it gives you a more effective way to still sweep them with the knee pick variation. An additional knee pick variation that I like to do when my opponent's stubborn is when I go for the knee pick, I actually keep walking around. So I come up, I pick their knee, and I keep walking around behind them. So I go for the sweep, they post out, I pick their knee, I continue walking behind them so I can still get them down. You will have some opponents that make the mistake of letting you get behind them when you go for the butterfly sweep. So you go for the butterfly sweep, they post out, and this gives you the opportunity to get out and go behind them and get them in the turtle. You go for the sweep, they post out, you get out, go behind, and get the turtle. With the previous scenario where you go for the sweep, they post out, and you come out the back, it will be common for your opponent to stand up. So you go for the sweep, you come out the back, you get behind them, but they stand up. In this situation, you'll have the body lock, and then you'll have to go for the takedown from a standing situation. It's also very common for someone to try to stand up directly from a butterfly sweep. So when you go for the butterfly sweep, they post out, but they stand up right away. In this scenario, you can get a single leg on them. So when you go for the sweep, they post out, and when they post out, you can then wrap around their leg, come up and get a single leg on them, and then take them down from there. One of my favorite things that I like to do when my opponent stands up when I go for the butterfly sweep is I like to go for a knee block takedown because I already have the underhook. So since I already have the underhook, when they go to stand up, I can block their knee and then take them down right away. I really like it when my opponent steps up to a combat base in front of my butterfly guard. This presents me with very easy ankle pick opportunities on them. Another highly effective but low risk situation that I can do when they step up to a combat base is I can go for a low double. So they step up to a combat base and I shoot for a double. It's going to be very common for your opponent to stand up because they don't accept you attacking their combat base lead leg. So when this happens, you attack their lead leg when they step up to combat base, but they stand up in an effort to defend. This puts you in a single leg situation where then you can go for a takedown from there. If I have a butterfly guard with an underhook and I can't control my opponent's outside arm, I'll come up with my knee in my opponent's body so I can use this position to create different wrestle up situations. For example, I can come up and press my knee into my opponent's body and then pick their outside knee to get the sweep from there. So I come up, press the knee into their body. This gives me leverage to pick their knee on the outside and then sweep them. If your opponent doesn't have a strong overhook when you come up to the knee and body position, you may have the opportunity to shuck them by and get behind them. So you come up to the knee and body position, you shuck them hard so that way you can get behind them. The knee and body position also provides me with the opportunity to get above my opponent. When I get above my opponent from utilizing this position, I then have the opportunity to get my arm over their head and snap them down to a front headlock. And just like previous scenarios, when we come up to the knee and body position, we have an opportunity to get a body lock on our opponent. So we come up to the position, wrap our arms low around our opponent's lower back, and break them down to get the sweep. You will have opponents that react by standing up. When this happens, you can reach for their lead leg and get a single leg on them. So when you go for the knee and body position, they react by standing up. You then grab their near side leg and get a single leg takedown opportunity on them. So make sure you don't waste this opportunity because this is a good way to actually reverse your opponent. opponent. And just like when you are on the ground from this situation, if they stand up and they do not have a strong overhook, you may be able to shuck them by and get behind them. So you go for the knee and body, they stand up, you shuck them by and get behind them. A very simple concept in regards to wrestling up against your opponent when they're on the ground is the concept of being perpendicular. By doing this, by making your opponent perpendicular to you, you then provide yourself with opportunities to get easy tackle takedowns against your opponents and easy sweeps. An example of this is by doing a 2-on-1 pull by. If they grab your leg and you do a 2-on-1 pull by to make them perpendicular, you have an easy tackle opportunity. Or if they post on your shoulder and you do a 2-on-1 pull by, you make them perpendicular, and this gives you the opportunity to get leverage to tackle them in a much easier manner. Common reaction that your opponent might have is they might stand up, and when this happens, you can then attack for a single leg. So when you do the pull by to make them perpendicular, it gives you the opportunity to continue your attack by grabbing a single leg and then taking your opponent down, so that way you can reverse the position on them. The arm drag is another great way to create that position of your opponent being perpendicular to you. So when you go for the arm drag, you then make them perpendicular, which makes it easier for you to attack them. Also, just like the other situation with the pull by, your opponent might stand up. So when this happens, you then have the opportunity to attack their leg. So your attack is not over. You can attack their leg, get the single leg on them, and still reverse the position. Some additional scenarios where you can get your opponent perpendicular is from the De La Riva guard. You go for an arm drag or a pull by, you make them perpendicular, and then you can easily tackle them to take them down or sweep them. You can also do it from the reverse De La Riva. So you do a pull by or you do an arm drag, you make them perpendicular to you, which then makes it much easier to sweep them just by getting up. The underhook half guard is a great way to wrestle up against your opponent. A lot of people call this a dogfight position as well. So when you get the underhook, you come up to your knees, and it gives you the opportunity to wrestle your opponent by knee picking them to the outside. So you come up, you get the underhook, you knee pick their outside leg and collapse them. One of my personal favorite things to do when I wrestle up from the underhook half guard is to do limp arms. So I come up, I get the underhook, I wrestle up, and I do a limp arm so that way I can get behind my opponent and attack them from there. By wrestling up to my knees from the underhook half guard, it also presents me with the opportunity to reach over my opponent's head and snap them down to a front headlock. So I get the underhook half guard, I come up to my knees, reach for their head, snap them down to a front headlock. If I come up with the underhook half guard and my opponent posts their leg out, I can stretch my back leg out, sweep them backwards, so then that way I can still reverse them. So I come up, they post their leg out, I do a slide sweep backwards and pull their hips so I can reverse them. A very wrestler-specific move that you can do from the underhook half guard when your opponent pulls their leg out from in between your legs is you can put their leg up on the shelf. So you basically pull their leg, put it up on your thigh, and this gives you the leverage to get more control of them. So you pull their leg up on your thigh, and then you pick their knee out so you could drop them. A common reaction that your opponent might have when you get the underhook half guard is they might stand up. So when you get the underhook half guard, they stand up, and this presents you with the opportunity to get a single leg on them. So you go for the underhook half guard, they stand up, you now have a single leg option from standing, and then you work the takedown from there. When my opponent stands up as a reaction to my underhook half guard, I also like doing the limp arm. So I go for the underhook half guard, they stand up, I do a quick limp arm so that way I can get behind them in a body lock position. So we go for the position, they stand up, and I get them in a body lock by doing a limp arm. And a great attack that I like to do against my opponent who keeps an overhook is a knee block. So I go for the underhook half guard, they stand up, they have the overhook, I block their knee, and I continue the takedown. This is one of my favorite ways to counter my opponent who stands up. The slide trip is an easy and effective way to take your opponent down when you have the body lock behind your opponent. So you have your opponent behind them, you do a baseball slide and take them down. I also like doing the front bump option because this gives me the opportunity to now attack my opponent's back. So I have the body lock behind them, I step in front of them, bump them, and I can get on top from behind. The leg lace option gives me the opportunity to take my opponent's back in a more secure fashion. So I'm behind my opponent, I lace their leg, hip them down, and then I can take their back and get my hooks in much quicker and more secure. You will also have opponents that try to do the wrestler type escape. So they basically do a squatting position, try to push your hands. And when this happens, you can sit them down to the ground and attack them from there. Another possible option from the body lock when you're behind your opponent standing is the kick behind their knees so you could sit them down. And then when they sit down, you can then attack their back on the ground. Thank you for watching. For more details on these wrestle up attacks, plus a lot more techniques and concepts, please visit the Grappler's Guide. For more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon. Thank you.